And it's a good morning to the Gelding. Good morning, Gelding. And we're shunning Melbourne Metropolitan today, but going to the group racing at Rosehill.
Good morning, professors. Good morning, listeners. Yes, we're moving away from the Valley and the All-Star Mile, which is worth $4 million, Professor, to go up to Rosehill, where there's got to be what you could arguably say is the best day's racing in Australia. 5 Group 1s, the world's richest 2-year-old race in the Golden Slipper. And then you've got Group 1s for the 3-year-olds, well, the 2-year-olds, the 3-year-olds, your older horses, the Ranford Stakes, a 2,000-metre horse. We're getting international horses coming over for the $1 million race, and you've got the George Ryder and the Galaxy, so for sprinters and for middle distance horses. So, Professor, I think it arguably to say the best race meeting in Australia.
And one that's racing just can't overlook for the day, Gelding. There's 10 races on the card. The first is at 12:10 p.m. Track's a good 4. The rail's out 2 metres. And one of the other decisions taking us to Sydney, Gelding, was probably the better of the weather conditions. It's going to be 37 in Melbourne today, only 30 in Sydney. And that 7 degrees makes a big difference.
It certainly does, Professor. But let me say to the listeners, I'm very wary. As I've said to you off air, Professor, I worry about these hot weather days and all that, and it's left to people to decide how much water to put on the track. You've only got to go back as far as Adelaide last week, Professor. Our tips wouldn't have been the same if we knew what the state of the track was going to be. From race 1, Adelaide had beautiful weather, and the first jockey interviewed after race 1 said it's suicide to run by the rail. So all day you had to be at least towards the middle of the track. That's from the start of the day. And really only one leader won a race on Adelaide Cup Day, and that was the Adelaide Cup itself.
Yeah,
over 2 miles. So the normal type of racing, you had to be midfield, like when you're doing tips of a morning, Professor, you think you work on the fact that you hope these tracks are going to be even. Like Melbourne and Sydney have both had beautiful weather. The track should be perfect and even, but it'll come down to an unknown of how much water was put on certain parts of the tracks. And that's how lanes are formed. And for a punter, it's impossible. Like Monday morning last week in Adelaide, if we knew you had to be midfield and wide, you can cut out 2/3 of the horses, Professor. Anything that's prone to leading and or dropping right back had no chance of winning. So, yeah. So I will say to the listeners, these tips that we do every Saturday morning are based on the track, based on the fact that we think the track will be fair.
That's fair enough, Gelding. All right.
Yeah. So bit of a caveat there, Professor. But I think that's why we keep saying to the listeners, keep watching these races, because sometimes patterns develop, and that's also got to be taken into consideration. As I said to you, I would have changed my bets on the texture during Monday. I would have been changing our bets if I could have.
Yeah, you're quite right, Gelding. All right, Gelding, what are your 2 best bets for Rosehill today?
Well, Professor, I'm doing your trick. I'm leaving the best bet out. The bet of the day.
Gelding, that ended well.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll fill the listeners in on that one, Professor. But Now, look, I think the bet of the day, of course, is Animo, but you're talking about a horse at $1.50. So I think that may be one for the very successful Professor's Parlay. But my first two tips, Professor, going with the old firm of the Blue Army, race 4, horse 5, Pericles, trained by James Cumming to be ridden by McDonald. This horse is in the Group 1 Rosehill Guineas over 2,000. Last start, the horse won at Sandown by almost 3 lengths, Professor, going away from Mr. Maestro and Osbred Rising Sun. I think this horse may be on a Australian Derby path, in the AJC Derby, but look, Pericles, McDonald takes the place of Jamie Carr, who rode it last start. You don't lose anything there having the world's best jockey aboard, Professor. So my first tip is race 4, number 5, Pericles. As I said, my best bet's Animo, but we've got to have a bet in the Golden Slipper, don't we, Professor?
We do, Gelding, we do.
Right. Steering clear of the favourites in Cylinder, again, which goes against the theory of the Blue Army and McDonald, Professor, but I'm going race 8, number 10, Learning to Fly. This filly's had 3 starts. It's won every one of them, Professor. Trained by Annabel Neesham, ridden by Chad Schofield, trained for the big stallion making business of Coolmore. It's by their new sire Justify. Coolmore have offered a red Ferrari, Professor, for the owners of the first horse that has Justify win a Group 1 race. So they might be presenting a red Ferrari to themselves, Professor, after today's Group 1. So look, any horse that 3 out of 3, Professor, you're getting $6.50 for an undefeated horse. So, it can win. It's drawn beautifully in barrier 4, 54.5. So I think Learning to Fly is a good each way bet, Professor. So my 2, well, actually my 3, race 4, number 2, and race 8, number 10. But of course, with the bet of the day being Animo, Professor. And what would you like?
Yeah, Gelding, I'm going in race 5, the Derby Munro Stakes, a 3-year-old listed race for over 1,200 metres. Gelding, one of the few races at Rosehill that's not a group race.
Yes, Professor.
All right.
Very interesting. But again, and Moonee Valley's the same, 10-race program, Professor. Remember, they used to be 8, and then racing clubs that squeeze a couple more in just to get a bit of turnover. So that seems to be the common now. When you have a big race day, you have 10 races.
Well, Moonee Valley have got 10 races today. Gelding, is that just coincidence? Because over the last weeks, months, 9 races have been max.
Yep. So they've managed to squeeze another one in, Professor.
But on the same day that Rosehill's got 10.
Yeah. Oh, Rosehill always has 10. Oh, well, New South Wales now always has 10, Professor. I think Mr. Volandis has to make some more money to pay for all those races.
So does that mean that 10 is going to be the norm for Melbourne Metro meetings?
Oh, I think Melbourne Metro next week at Flemington, there might be 10, Professor. But I think after that, once you get into the late autumn, off-season racing, it'll drop back to 9. But you'll find that Sydney's always having 10.
All right. Well, I've split the 10 in half with race 5, Gelding.
Beautiful.
Race 5, horse number 8, Dashing Legend, coming out of barrier 5. It's had 10 starts for 4 wins and 5 placings. So a very good record so far, Gelding, a 40% win rate, 90% place rate. What do I like about it? Well, one, It's won both at starts this preparation. 2, it's won third up, and it's third up today. 3, it beat the favourite Economics at its last start by 2 lengths. 4, it won from midfield and also has won leading, so it can win at either part of the field. 5, it's won over the distance, and 6, it's from Snitzel. So
I was waiting for the Snitzel, and I noticed during the week there's a Snitzel connection, Professor.
Is there?
Yes. Just for the listeners, Professor and I are looking at a small interest in another horse. Seamus Award was by Snitzel.
Oh, there you go.
So
Everybody
Seamus
wants a
Award,
Snitzel.
Cox Plate. Well, if you can afford it. Snitzel was by Reduced Choice. Again, a great sire. And of course, Reduced Choice was by Danehill. So we're getting into the Danehill line with the granddad being a Snitzel.
There you go.
There you go. So what's the name for the horse? Hot Snitzel?
Oh, yes. Well, watch this space. That's all we'll say.
Very good, Professor.
What I also like is this horse is currently showing $6 and $2.20. Now, tell me, Gelding, when was the last time that a 4-win horse out of 10 races, 9 placings out of 10 races, was showing $6 and $2.20? And it's won its last 2.
Very rarely, Professor. I suppose that's a good thing about these meetings. You're getting the good horses going to them with excellent form. As we said, your tip there is $6. My tip in the slipper is $6. And these horses have won they've raced their last 5 starts, they've won them all, and you're getting $6 both of them.
Well, this is obviously the day we need to connect the dots with the parlays, Gelding.
Let's hope, Professor.
All right. My second choice, Gelding, is in race 9, the Kiora Galaxy Group 1 over 1,100 metres. In that race, Gelding, I like 2. Uncommon James, coming out of barrier 4, had 8 starts for a very good record of 6 wins and 2 placings. So a 75% win rate, 100% place rate. Let me go through what I like here, Gelding. I won't get to 6 with this one, but
right.
Number 1, it's won over the distance. Number 2, it's won 7 of its last 8. And the last time it was not in the winner's stall, it was second to the group in a group 2 to Lofty Strike. It reversed that loss last start in the Group 1 Oakley Plate. So if it's a Group 1 Oakley Plate winner, Gelding, I think that's done enough for me to suggest that it might win this one.
Lofty Strike also finished second in the Newmarket last Saturday, Professor.
So
we find In Secret. So, and I regard In Secret probably as one of our best sprinters now. So
exactly right.
That's outstanding form.
Damien Lane's in the saddle. Over his last 50, he's riding at a 22% win rate. And Stephen O'Day and Hoisted at 28% over their last 50. So at $3.20 and $1.55, I like the bet, Gelding.
I like it, Professor. As I said, worried about Eduardo, great horse, but it's carrying, its record, of course, winning $6.5 million, Professor, but it's got to carry a lot of weight, giving these horses a lot of weight in a heat. Yeah, so look, worried about that. But Uncommon James, Queensland trained horse, which has been racing down in Melbourne, now goes to Sydney. So it's used to the clockwise running, Professor, coming from Queensland, had plenty of wins. So look, I like your pick there, Professor. I think both of them very, very good odds.
All right, Gelding. Professor's parlay time.
Very successful Professor's parlay. Apart from?
Well, what do we say? If there wasn't a bias to the track on Monday,
yes,
our selection of Phil and I's probably wins.
Yes. yes, and yes, Professor.
But what we can say is that we dabbled with the tennis, Gelding, and we've got a 100% record.
Yes, very good, Professor.
Medvedev beat Ivashka and Fritz absolutely poleaxed Bayers. Fritz won 6-2, 6-1.
Yeah.
That game was over after the first set. I was looking at the results in real time, Gelding, and I thought, oh, well, we're going well here.
Well done, Professor. Well, your tipping on the sports, apart from racing, has been fantastic. And I suppose that's why we're going a bit shorter with the horse, just trying to make sure, we're looking for a certain winner every week for the parlay to continue on the way, and you get a bit more value added in with the other legs, which have been, you were red hot with the NFL, you're red hot with the tennis, you're red hot with the basketball, Premier League. Yeah, let's move on.
All right. Well, you'll enjoy this, Gelding, because I didn't let you into what the professor's parlay was. We didn't have time.
Yeah, I know.
The warm-up. So here we go. Get your pen ready, Gelding.
It's poised, Professor.
Race 7, horse 1, Animo.
Yes.
A very good anchor leg, Gelding. The agreed bet of the day between you and I. Let's parlay that into the Canterbury Bulldogs to beat the West Tigers.
Yes.
Now, why do I say that? Well, Canterbury are coming off a win over Melbourne Storm at Melbourne Storm's home ground, which is not always easy. Gelding, I went to the fixture last year with the Giraffe and watched Melbourne Storm poleaxe Canterbury Bulldogs. I think Melbourne Storm scored in excess of 50 points. And then less than 12 months later, Canterbury Bulldogs returned the favour and put in a great effort. Why don't I like the West Tigers? Well, they're sitting on the bottom of the ladder, Gelding. Now, there's a funny thing about the ladder at the moment. The Dolphins are 3-0 on top.
Yep.
West Tigers, who were supposed to have improved this season, 0-2, and they've been beaten by the juggernauts of the NRL, the Newcastle Knights, who are 14th and only won one game, and the Titans, who've only won one game as well. So it's not as if they've been unlucky and been beaten by Sydney Roosters or Manly or the Rabbitohs. No, they've been beaten by also Rams, Gelding. So and they've got a minus 22 points differential already. So they're only going one way.
Yeah, and one I suppose for the Giraffe Professor later on. How does the side come in, right? And just pick a few people to come in, be three zip, and a club like the Tigers have been around for years, spending big on players, got Benji Marshall there to coach them and everything like that, and just can't get off the bottom, Professor, for about the last 4 or 5 years.
I'll tell you why, Gelding. Coaching. The Dolphins very cleverly went and got a bloke who's won wherever he's been. He only knows one way to do things, and that's to win.
Yep.
If you were going after a coach, you'd go for Wayne Bennett or
Bellamy.
Exactly right.
Yep.
They're the two coaches you'd go after. Or I'll add a third one now. The coach of the Penrith Panthers.
Yes. Yeah. But, the Panthers, of course, have that fantastic kind of breeding ground of juniors and that, and seem to be able to really place players into the NRL and not at big prices, Professor.
Yeah, well, Ivan Cleary, you're right, but he had moderate success or medium success. He's certainly been very successful since getting to Penrith, but I think he knows a lot about the game. So if I was going after a coach, I'd pick those three. What have the West Tigers been doing? They appointed Tim Sheens. Tim Sheens is almost as old as the coach of the Dolphins, but hasn't been nearly as successful.
And, Professor, they're doing what a lot of clubs in the AFL do, overspend on old tried players as if that's going to be the instant saviour.
Exactly right, Gelding. All right, so the Canterbury Bulldogs, and let's parlay that into another team I support, Arsenal to beat Crystal Palace. Don't cry, Gelding. It looks like you're almost going to break down there.
Professor, can we go back through the old tapes? Didn't you say you'd given up on the Premier League? A quotable quote from you.
Well,
I'm not going to the Premier League ever again.
Yeah, I might have said that at one stage, Gelding.
Oh, Professor.
Arsenal with a point to prove, though, Gelding. They're playing at home. They've won 21 of 27. I'm feeling fairly confident. Crystal Palace.
I'm glad one of us is, Professor.
Crystal Palace have only won 6 of 27, Gelding. There's a huge difference there for a reason. And there's a 50-goal differential between the two teams.
Right. Yep, I heard that once before. Remember, one side had lost one game.
They're playing away, Gelding.
Right, okay.
I'll go for them. I'll pick them at home, Gelding.
All right.
So the win parlay, Gelding, showing 2-1.
Beautiful.
The place parlay showing 3-2.
Okay, so let's barrack for Animo. I think your Bulldogs will get up, Professor, and I can have a nervous wait over the soccer.
We always love a nervous wait on That's Racing, Gelding.
Oh, Professor, you're doing me head in sometimes.
Well, I won't call this a theory, Gelding.
A theory or an
theory.
opinion?
No, it's not a theory or opinion.
Okay.
It's a selection.
Oh, beautiful.
All right, Gelding. Well, that's it for today. I'm sure the viewers love this part of the program.
Professor, you've got to be in it to win it, don't you?
You know the good part about it, Gelding. You get the right of reply next Saturday on That's Racing. So you'll be able to tell me all about it where I've come undone.
Oh, Professor, no, I'm hoping we're celebrating it.
Well, so do I, Gelding. So do I.
We're here to try to tip people into the right results.
Yeah.
And even though we joke about it, there's a little bit of work that goes into the theory of all these things. So we're looking for horses with good form that we think, winners like David from Mordiella can have good days on. And the Professor's parlay, Professor, has been nothing but a great success. So, so there's a lot of work that goes into picking. We joke a little bit about all these things, but, I'll be very shocked if Arsenal don't win 3-1 or 3-0 or something like that.
Well, I'll be very shocked if they don't score 3 goals at home, Gelding. It's just a matter of preventing the opposition from scoring 3 goals.
Yeah, I think I've got that covered, Professor.
All right, Gelding, before we go, we should ask the viewers if they've made it this far in the program and this is probably the best part of the program, that they should punch those buttons down below. Yeah, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That's what YouTube looks at to enable us to stay on air. So we want to see plenty of likes and plenty of subscriptions. So it costs nothing to subscribe to the channel.
It's a beautiful thing.
Now, you and I should discuss whether it should cost money to subscribe to the channel.
No. You remember that's the thing you're trying to get on.
Oh, that's right. There'll be a little paper bag emoji.
Yeah, the brown paper bag full of money, which
all right,
will be the next one.
Well, until next Saturday, Gelding, it's good luck.
And good punting.